Well, hello, Mr. Soul.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bladtcast. Very excited to welcome back to the show the great Peter Noone. Dr. Noone, how are you, sir?
I'm great, thank you. Dr. Noone, that's got Dr. No One.
Dr. No One, yes.
Yeah.
I remember our mutual friend Dennis would sometimes call you Dr. Noone, but
Yeah.
Dr. No One was one of the characters there. PeterNoone.com. And Peter, you and I started trading messages because I spoke with Jackie Martling on a show I do on another network, and he started talking about you, and I was like, oh my goodness, I haven't talked to Peter in forever. And as I messaged you, I'm like, oh yeah, let's catch up. I was going to wait until you were off the road, but Peter, you're never off the road, are you?
I hope not. I think it's what I do. I mean, I've been on the road now for over 60 years, which is kind of strange. And I realized that, I'm one of the lucky few, that can still go out and sing my songs with some kind of energy. Sometimes it's fake, but I'm always kind of able to do it. And, I guess I got 10 more years. I say to members in the band, you're in this for another 10 years starting now. And they think they might make it as well.
Well, I about a month ago, I saw Mick Keith and the boys. I saw the Rolling Stones here in Los Angeles, and our mutual friend who I just mentioned him, Dennis Miller, like maybe 2 decades ago, he had a joke about the Stones. It's a very funny joke. He said, "I saw the Rolling Stones. Moss has gathered," which is a funny joke.
Yeah.
But I can, it's not actually accurate. I cannot believe they're still doing it. Mick moves. Even when I was 25, I couldn't move the way Mick does, and it's amazing.
I've never been able to move like Mick does, but I do a good parody of him on stage, because I say that Mick Jagger is my father, but Elton John is my mother, and I got my mother's body. and and I do a bit of an, I like to have fun with the fact that I'm old. I said,
sure.
I wake up in the morning and say, Peter, you have to remember, you're not 75 anymore. You're 76. and I'm having fun with being old because I never thought of myself as a geezer. But I think, the Stones have always been about 6 years older than me.
Yeah.
And kind of brotherly loved me at the beginning. Andrew Oldham and Keith Richard, we were all staying in this. It was a City Squire on Lexington Avenue in New York. And I was a bit under the weather, as they say. I was like, been a bit to MacArthur's Park and had a few too many drinks, more than I could handle. And I was like in the stairwell of this hotel, trying to escape, that moment when you're really drunk and you go and hide from everyone so you can puke alone. And Keith and Andrew Oldham come through this fire door, and they're like threatening me, And Keith says, if we ever find out you're doing any kind of drugs, we're going to find you and beat you up.
Wow.
Isn't that great? And, there you go, because I was 16 and they were 22. Yeah. They were giving me fatherly kind of advice.
Yeah, and Keith wanted to make sure there was plenty around for him, but also when you're a kid like that, and it's amazing because obviously I've gotten to know Peter because we've mentioned Dennis Miller a couple times. You would regularly be on his show, and just your stories about being 15, hanging out with the Beatles,
yes.
And now you're these similar, just shocking stories. When you've been around for a while, you get to know everybody, and it's amazing because obviously the Beatles aren't still at it, but I saw Paul about 2 years ago, and
still brilliant.
Yeah, it's still great, and they figured out some technology where he can harmonize with John now, because of that documentary that Peter Jackson did. So it's so amazing, sort of like embracing the technology. I think they did it for I Got a Feeling. And it's like, how could you not get chills listening to Paul live singing to John's actual vocal? And it's fantastic to get to see that. And the funny thing about seeing the Stones, I said this to my friend I went with, they had, they don't phone in any part of it, but the biggest energy, the best part of the performance was their new songs from their tremendous new album, Hackney Diamonds, because they're like, oh, we've only played these songs like a dozen times. This is great, Yeah,
well, I think you should see the Rolling Stones as often as you can, because they always do 3 songs in every show better than they ever played them before.
Right.
It's not always the same 3 songs. I think they're all this kind of, the Stones is this work in progress, and that kind of strange energy that they've got with each other is far away now. You don't have that. It doesn't exist. I remember seeing the Beatles when I was a kid, and the most noticeable thing was how they had this strange Royal Marine kind of atmosphere. Like they were all laughing at each other's mistakes and wins, and it was, I was a little kid, and it was in a field near my grandmother's house, and they had this sort of unusual energy. They were all playing off each other and laughing and smiling at each other and enjoying the song that they were playing. And the Stones have still got that thing, that the Beatles kind of started.
Yeah.
Most of the bands who were like the Stones, like the Pretty Things, had a lot of head down playing, all the other bluesy bands. And the Stones were like a pop blues band with, a lot of kind of fun in the band. And that still happens in 3 songs at every one of their shows. You can see that they're enjoying playing it. With Steve on the drums now, who plays exactly the same as Charlie, but it isn't Charlie. Close your eyes and it is Charlie.
I was glad that I saw them. I think 2012. Charlie was still behind the kit, as they say. But it's just tremendous because they have additional musicians, they have additional singers. It's a big production, and it's so fun. And what you're talking sort of about the 3 songs. They do this thing where they let people vote online for one of the songs in the set. And I tried to stack the deck because I've never heard them do She's a Rainbow live. So I really wanted it.
Oh, yeah.
Shattered one. And it's a great song, but I'm like, I've heard Shattered before. I really wanted to hear She's a Rainbow. So
yeah, that's not one of their most liked albums. I think that one. It's like a lot of overdubs and things on that one. Hey,
but Peter, if you're still at it for 10 more years, Mick and Keith will still be at it for 10 more years. So hopefully I get a chance to see them,
Yeah, no one knows. We all would go for it as long as we can.
Well, that's go ahead.
Keith said that if they were old blues players like Jay Hawkins or all the Big Bill Broomsey, nobody would question the fact that they were still playing at 90.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Question the arena, but where you are when you're 90, you don't expect to be at Shea Stadium, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, that brings me to a topic. We're going to have a panel discussion on our next episode. I'm going to be joined by comedian Don Jameson, my friend Carson, and Adam Hughes from Ireland. And we're going to talk about sort of the very abrupt announcement that Aerosmith is going to cease all touring. And, Steven Tyler's been struggling to recover from some vocal injuries. And there's something on the one hand, I have to say, Peter, it's disappointing, but it's like, at least they're saying, we can't do it anymore. We're not going to do it.
You have to have balls to quit. It's not an easy thing to do, because I hate to. No, the truth is, most of these people had a hobby when they were kids.
Yeah.
And they've managed to make a living, saying, thank God I didn't keep that stamp book. Do you know what I mean? Or my book of train numbers. My hobby was music. I mean, but I can remember since I'm sure every band that's still in existence started out playing music for the fun of playing music. Like before electricity, families put together a little band in their house, and played, and music was part of our world. And all these lucky guys like Aerosmith have been managing to make a living doing their hobby. Not many people get that opportunity. Some people turn it into a huge business like the Stones. But most people, we just make a living. I make a good living, and I'm lucky because I can't do anything else. I'm just the lead singer.
Right. And that's your hobby. There's that moment, I guess, where you're a kid and you're like, all right, I'll trade you all my comic books for this beat up guitar because that's what I'm more interested in. That's sort of the moment where you move on to the next step. And I mean, Aerosmith, they had what was billed as a farewell tour that they were going to start in about a month. And so I think that's why it was surprising. And it's disappointing mostly because I couldn't get my act together to see them when they did a Vegas residency a couple of years ago. So my last memory of seeing them will be in 2014. But at least my last memory was when they were good. Look, Peter, I don't know how you feel about it, but there are bands who go out there and let's just say that what they bring to the stage is a little bit less than authentic. And it would be very easy for Steven Tyler to get up there and lip sync so that they can make the millions on top of millions that they'd already sold in terms of tickets for this farewell tour. And he's just like, well, I can't do that. So I appreciate that as just a fan of music.
It happens, that you show up for the rehearsal for your farewell tour and you hear each other and you say, I mean, remember that they were offered, Led Zeppelin were offered millions and millions of dollars to tour.
Yeah.
Not even a farewell tour, just a tour.
Yeah.
And Robert Plant showed up and said, I can't sing like that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to disappoint all the Led Zeppelin fans, but I'm not that guy anymore. So, maybe they heard each other, Aerosmith, and they were disappointed in what it all sounded like. And we shouldn't do this. They maybe care about what they sound like, Sometimes the money isn't enough, I'm sure Steven Tyler made $100 million on that American Idol telling people they couldn't sing.
Right. And he doesn't want those people to point at him and be like, well, now you're the one who can't sing, Steven. So
yes, Steven, you're not going to Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly. It is one of those things that you start to realize some of the artists that we love. My absolute favorite first concert I ever went to in 1990 was Alice Cooper, and I think because of the way that he always sang, he's very close to 80. He's out there literally right now out on tour, just like you are, and he never lets me down. So there's going to come a day where I won't be able to see any of these bands. I don't know if I believe Kiss is done forever from their farewell tour, but it's at least slowing down. And I'm like, I gotta see these bands while I can. And I'm sorry, what were you going to say, Peter?
I just think that in all these cases, that you don't get married to the people in your band. And sometimes you don't. I mean, Alice Cooper was lucky that his band was called Alice Cooper, but he got rid of them, and then he got people that he liked in the band. It's important. I can't work with people I don't like, and I won't work with people I don't like. So I'm lucky that, and I know Alice. He likes to play golf. His hobby is golf.
Yeah,
he's making a living doing what was his original hobby, but he found another hobby that keeps him away from the drugs.
Yeah, I love the way that he explained it, is that when he finally got clean in the early 80s, he's like, I needed to replace it with something, and golf made the most sense. And, it's very funny to think about that. I want to get just a couple comments from the chat, both from Cam Egan, who's in the Chicago area. Cami wants to know, are you coming back to the Chicago Beatles Fest? She loved both you and Mickey Dolenz at the Chicago Beatles Fest.
They invited me, but I had to tell them the truth is that although I knew the Beatles, what I know more about the Beatles is that I was a fan from the first time I saw them, August the 6th, 1963.
Wow.
What's the date today?
Today's August the 6th.
But this is the first time I saw them, and I had the ticket. I saw them in a field near my grandmother's at the Urmston Show, and it says it's Twist and Shout Festival, because that's the way people used to talk. And they were playing in a field, and I was instantly a fan. And I remember that they were having fun with each other. Wow, it's amazing. Is it 61 years ago? Yeah, it's 61 years ago. And they were enjoying this strange kind of camaraderie. that was appealing to young boys, and who had musical intentions. And so when I go to the Beatles Fest, I haven't got any stories except me with the Beatles. Do you know what I mean? And that's, I don't think that's very interesting. It's about me. It's not about the Beatles, and it's called the Beatles Fest. It's not a Peter Noone Fest. So, I kind of get trapped into this thing. I mean, Mickey Dolenz has real Beatles stories because he went to the studio and he got a caftan and the lava lamps and everything. And he got there and he realized that it was like an industrial event. They were sitting on the fold-out chairs in the EMI studios, facing each other, four of them facing each other, with George Martin listening intently as they were learning a song. And there was no lava lamps, there was no pot smoking. It was really industrial behavior. So that's a great story, because nobody knows that the Beatles were the hardest working people that you ever met in your life. They never stopped working.
Yeah, well, I referenced earlier that just amazing Peter Jackson documentary, Get Back, and some people would say it was a little long. I felt like it wasn't long enough. I'm like, there's got to be more footage. I want to watch more of that. I want to watch, Paul kind of noodling around. Oh, I have a little bit of a song, and then that song turns into Hey Jude, and you're like, yeah, I could watch that. I literally watch that all day.
I could as well, but that's because we're fans, because you know that it is a one-off. It's a one-off that those people met each other and they all had little bits of ideas, and somehow they made the statue out of it all. I've got the nose and I've got the ears, and they made like a magical thing, because if you listen to it still today, even from the very beginning, I met some professor from a college, and he put all the Beatles recordings in the order that they made them, starting with Anna or Chains or something.
Right.
And he sent me like, I listened to it more than any music I've listened to, but you have to listen to it all. So you have to take the day off to listen to it. The growth, from minute to minute, that first album, every song they get better because they get more confident and more powerful. And I mean, it's really a great work of art, the Beatles. So Beatle Fest, I'm a fan. And Mickey Dolenz has much better stories than me, because he got to hang with them on a more personal level. My Beatles stories, I'm trying to get in a nightclub called the Ad Lib. I'm 17, and you have to be 18 to get a drink, but you need to be 21 to get in this club. So I'm standing on the street wondering how I'm going to get in this. I'm walking up and I see John and this guy. He had a driver called Terry Doran from Liverpool, and I knew Terry. Hey, Terry. So I meet them getting out of their car. They park in their car in any parking place they want, because it's this stupid looking Rolls Royce, psychedelic car, very inconspicuous. So Terry Doran and I'm getting with them. So I get in the lift with them, because this club is on the top floor of a building. And when the doors of the lift open, I'm with them, to the people who work at the club. So they seat us. Now I'm with one of the Beatles in a nightclub, sitting at the table with them. And the waitress comes over and she looks at me. When I was 17, I probably looked 11. I have everything except for the school cap going for me. So I'm sitting there and she says, there's a 2-drink minimum. And she's looking at me, and John says, I'll have 2 Bacardis and he'll have 2 Cokes. Bring 2 little bottles of Bacardi this big, and he gives me a Bacardi and I give him a Coke.
That's perfect.
I mean, that's my Beatles story. And every time I met him after that, he always called me Hermit. He never called me, hey, Pete. Well, which I would have loved. It was always Hermit, not Herman.
Not even Hermit.
Yeah. And it was just a great bloke. It was a really, really nice chap. All the Beatles were always very nice to us, because we were kids.
Yeah, of course.
We didn't know we were kids. We thought we were like the great new competition under this huge cloud called the Beatles. And they were, and ever since then, I've been under this huge cloud called the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Genesis, whoever you want to name. I'm only like bottom feeding here with my shtick. And they were. Well, there's a great video of like we're playing the New Musical Express poll winners concert. Can you imagine we win a poll in England? We're in the top 10 of this poll, and all the top 10 people get to play on this date. So it's like the Beatles, Cliff Richards and the Shadows, the Rolling Stones, the Yardbirds, Herman's Hermits, the Fortunes, the Searchers, all the top 10 are in there. And we're in it. And I know John because I've had a couple of drinks with him, you know. So I go and stand talking to him backstage, you know, like hanging with one of the Beatles, you know what I mean? And a certain part of this whole conversation, I'm just hanging there like in heaven, you know, and you know, with the Beatles. And he goes, "Hey, Hermits, isn't this one of your songs?" And the Hermits are on stage. They're playing the intro to She's a Must Have Avoided. Go down, 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 down. And the video sees me leaving this sort of dugout area, running to the stage and arriving at the microphone going, "She's a must have." I made it. There is he. Unbelievable. So, you know, they were nice guys. And that's what I found. People don't realize how small England is and how small the music scene really was, because we all knew each other and we knew where everybody was all the time, because it was like maybe being a comedian in America, you know where the comedy clubs are. We knew where every club was. We knew people would say, "Don't work with Baka because he doesn't give you all the money." You know, we had this thing where we played this date and the guy said, because I was somehow became the leader of my group, I was the person who got the money at the end of the evening. They thought I'd be good at that because my parents were accountants. Right. So I go to the office to get paid afterwards, and the guys, I said, he said, how much did I say I was giving you? I said, £6. You know, he said, not a lot of money.
No.
£6. He says, I'm going to give you 4. I said, no, 6. He said, you were going to give us 6. Yeah, well, people were dancing, and if people danced, I could have just got a DJ. I could have got a DJ playing music that they like instead of you. And I took the £4 and I had to explain to the people that, but it's a small country. We all knew exactly what was going on. We knew where the Beatles were playing. We knew they were going to the Philippines. We knew they got back from the Philippines. I used to get in fights in transport cafes, and Jack Bruce reminded me that you know, he was in a band that we were all driving around in little vans all around England, and everybody kind of knew each other. And his story was, he remembers the Hermits were hard guys because my mother had this table, screw-on legs on a coffee table, and we'd unscrewed them, and we each had one up the sleeve of our jackets. So if some truck driver said, if you're a boy or a girl, and Jack Bruce tells me that I told somebody in the thing, you have to hit them first, because if you don't hit them, they'll get, it was called a dobber. We had these dobbers up the sleeves of our jackets when we went into the transport cafe. And I was a little kid saying, you know, you have to hit them first, because if you don't hit them first, they'll get it off you and they'll hit me with it. He remembers me with these hard men, and he also reminded me that once I used to think I was good at fights. You know, a lot of drunk people think they're good at fighting. I used to like getting fights with people, and Ginger Baker came up to me at this place. I remember it was the Cromwellian, which was a gambling club, and I'm playing roulette like a big shot, you know, like the middle 12. Put it all on the middle 12, please. Yes, sir. And he comes up right in my face. He goes, ah! You know, like Ginger. That was his hello.
Right.
Ah! Scary ginger head, you know. Ooh. Outside. So Jack's with him. They're not in the same band at the time, but just there were a lot of people. Peter, don't go outside there. So I'm gonna get a bit of him. I know he's tough. He's like 6'7", but I'm like 5'6", and I'm gonna beat him up, right? But a couple of drinks will do that, make me invincible.
Yeah, what you were saying before, having some drinks makes everyone great at fighting. Everybody's an expert boxer. Yeah.
You read the Tom Jones books, he tells two of the fights that I won are in it. And they're the only 2 fights I ever won. But Jack Bruce talks me out going outside by saying, he'll kill Peter. Do not go outside. He will kill you. And 40 years later, I'm with Jack in New York. I said, I just did a thing with Jack Bruce, and we made this Who tribute song, and he's in Africa. And he said I said, you know, we're in different studios. He's in Africa, I'm in Santa Barbara, Montecito. And he's in Africa, and we've got Peter Banks, who was in Yes. He's the guitar player on it, and we're trying to put this record together. And I say to Jack, just starts playing. There's no click track. He won't play to a click track because Ginger starts playing. So I go, hang on a second, where's one? And he stops playing. He says, you'll be able to find it. Start playing again. You know, biggest put down ever. And I told Jack the story, and he go, yeah, Ginger. So you're lucky you didn't go outside that day. I said, what do you mean? He said, I told you he would kill you.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, but I didn't. He said, oh no, I meant he would have killed you.
Yeah, not he would have kicked your ass. No, he would have killed you. You would have been dead. Yeah. You know, as you were talking about that, I think it's interesting. You're talking about knowing Jack Bruce, knowing Ginger Baker. They're not in the same band, and obviously, you know, together with Clapton, they give us the brilliance that's Cream. But just imagine, I guess, you know, how it just takes each of them being in a different band at the wrong time that it doesn't come together in that way. And I just think it's only 3 people. And, you know, did you know them at the point when they put together, they got together as Cream?
Everybody, yeah, it was a very small scene. We all knew each other. We didn't all like each other. Right. They certainly didn't rush out to get the new Herman LP. Do you know what I mean? But we all knew of each other and ran into each other regularly because all the TV, all the radio stuff was in, you know, it was a very small music scene. It was all like 57th Street in New York. England is only as big as Iowa. The whole island is as big as Iowa, and they've got 5 million musicians who are all good. They're all pretty good. So yeah, some of them became Cream and became, you know, the top of the game. So I knew Jack when he was, I think Jack was playing bass for the Mersey Beats or something. You know, everybody was all over, and he was in the Alan Bound set, and he was in, there was a steamroller with, there was all these bands going around. And you know, one of the guys, I can't remember the guy's name, but he came to my house in Denham Village. I lived in Denham Village, this big posh house next to Lord Stokes. And, you know, it's a posh place. And he came and he had like a witch lady with him. This guy, I can't remember his name. I might remember it in a minute. But had this lady who was an American girl from California who was dressed as a witch with like the green paint and everything. And they showed up at my house. And we're pretty normal people. My wife and I are fairly normal people. You know, we've got, you know, we pay bills and stuff like that. So this is like a witch. And I jokingly, you know, he said, I jokingly said, you know, he starts telling me how they're really witches. And you know, my wife and I, you know, I've got a Jewish wife and me, the Roman Catholic boy, and we're now listening about witchcraft and stuff, all which is like a sin. So he's telling me this story, and I go, and he says, you know, when we walk through Denham, this is in Denham Village, we can stop cars. And he starts doing signs, you know, like all that stuff. So my wife is getting a bit scared, and but I joke, you know, I talk to her and I say, well, if I saw you on the street, I would stop my car without making that sign.
Yeah, you don't even have to do that.
I said, and it has a bad ending, this story, Christian. I said to him, if you can stop a train, I'll be impressed. Jack Bruce told me, Peter, you killed him. No, I didn't kill him. Yeah, you did. You killed him. He tried to stop a train. He didn't try to stop a train. He jumped under a tube. You know, people who are insane don't usually get better. They only get worse.
Yeah, and it's always like, It's always like people who think they can fly. Why do they jump
Well,
off
yeah,
the
yeah.
roof of the building? Why don't you start on the ground and try and fly up to the top of the building? Just to be sure
Well,
you can
he
fly.
didn't try and stop a train. He jumped under the subway, the tube, in
Yeah,
So,
sure.
so Jackson said he stopped a train in Denham, and his body was at King's Cross Station.
Oh,
And of course, because I'm a bit naive, I didn't think that was funny. I was saddened,
yeah,
but
sure.
Jack thought that was good. You killed him.
Well, I'm on Jack's side on this. It is actually very funny. Our friend Cam Egan has a few more things in the chat. Ringo's 84 and still out with his all-star band, and I think that's a great reminder that Ringo's also out there almost every summer. I think he occasionally takes a year off, but with the All-Star Band, and the All-Star Band changes as the tour goes along, and it's obviously always great. She also had a question: did Herman's Hermits ever tour with Billy J. Kramer?
Yeah, many times. Yeah, I've known Billy all my life. The first top shelf, in England, we called it shelf. You're on a shelf, and you start on the bottom shelf, and you get to the second shelf, and at the top shelf is like Fats Domino and Elvis Presley and Little Richard and the Beatles now. Sure. But at the time we were on this bottom shelf, the really bottom shelf, getting £4 a night and spending all the money getting to the gig. Just getting there was enough. We paid to play. And Jerry Marsden had a record, How Do You Do It, which was #1. And he invited us on this show. And we were called Pete Novak and the Heartbeats. And we got there. And it said Jerry and the Pacemakers, #1 record in the country. And then second on the bill was Billy J. Kramer and the Dakotas. They spelt his name wrong, but they got my name right. They got my name right. Pete Novak and the Heartbeats. We were the third on the bill. And as I went to the stage door, there's Billy. Billy's a funny man. I mean, he's one of my heroes because he's always kept his sense of humor. And we got a little Bedford Dormobile van, which is like one of those where the roof opens to live in. And we all pile out of this van. And Jerry Marsden, who became a lifelong friend, he goes, "Which one of you is Pete Novak?" But me, I'm Pete Novak. He's all, let me show you to your dressing room, and takes me through the whole of the place, right? And Billy's with him because Billy was like his second in command person. And we're walking down this thing, and we get down to the end of the car, and he opens the door, and it says "Gentleman" on the door. He puts me in the toilet. So it was a good. I like people who punk me because it means that you got to accept it. A good punk, and so I became friends with Billy J. Kramer, and we still hang out, and I see him, and I will say Billy J. Kramer right now is in the best shape he's ever been since he got thrown through a window in Atlanta for saying he didn't like country music.
Yeah, it's not. I wouldn't say that in Atlanta today, let alone whenever he said it. I don't think that's a popular opinion.
What?
So, you were mentioning in passing, you were talking about, just lists of musicians that sort of, emerging at the same time. And you mentioned Cliff Richard, which I feel like Cliff Richard is someone who, not unknown in the States, but I immediately got the impression that it was much bigger in the UK. I only ever heard about Cliff Richard for the first time when I was a kid, watching a show that probably people remember from the BBC, a show called The Young Ones, with the comedians who all went on and did other things, Rick Mayall being, right there at the front. And I loved that show. And the character Neil would insult Cliff Richard all the time, just like, "Oh no, at least I'm not Cliff Richard." And so then I was like, "Oh no, but these are amazing songs." So he was huge, right? It's just
he closed the show. The Beatles were on the show, but he closed the show. You see, Cliff Richards is he's a really good guy. I see him now and then. He lives in America now. He's a really, really good guy. And he's had every player played with him. He says, "But they all left me. Everybody who was in the band left me." Yeah. And he was the headliner. And it's a strange thing for England because he's the music of our lives. you know, people of my age, you know, in their 70s, every single thing that he recorded means something to us. You know, he had this "Come on, pretty baby, let's move it and groove it," which was like the first English rock and roll record. There's "Shaking All Over" by Johnny Kidd and the Pirates and "Move It" by Cliff Richards that were kind of game changers in guitar licks and songs. And you know, he had this, everybody sat in the car with their mums and dads and sang "We're all going on a summer holiday, no more worries for a week or two." And everybody in England went on a summer holiday and sang that song on the way with their mum and dad and their sister in the back seat of the car. You know what I mean? It was a thing.
Yeah, of course.
And the young ones, darling, we're the young ones. Yeah. And that's like Dion, the Wanderer. You know, we're the young ones, the young woman, and it's, you know, like rock and roll type of lyrics. And so we all, and he was a fantastic singer, like Elvis Presley. God gave him 5 different voices, and they were all good ones. He could sing rock and roll songs, he sing quiet songs. You know, when you think of, nobody ever called. I'm the only person who ever probably told Elvis, "You're the best singer that I've ever heard." Yeah. You know, he had 5 different voices. Cliff Richards had 5. He had a rock and roll voice, he had a quiet voice, and if you listen to like the 12th of Never by Cliff Richards, it's the brilliant record with brilliant players. And the rock and roll records that he made towards the end with the Roulette guy, you know, guys from bands that we all knew, and John Farrar from Marvin Welch and Farrar. His band wrote some of those hits. You know, the Shadows are oh yeah, we know their names. Like before the Beatles, everybody knew the Shadows' names. And Cliff Richards is a unique. Francie got Johnny Halliday, can't do any wrong. Everybody, whatever Johnny did, Johnny. Cliff Richards is one of those, and he does 2 tours a year. They're both sold out. He does one all spiritual songs or religious songs, I call them Christian songs, and he does one kind of one. You know, it's quite a unique. It's part of our culture, you know. And we didn't buy his records, maybe, but as we grew older, we realized how important they were.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I was always mostly predominantly a rock fan, but the pop songs from my youth that I probably hated, you hear them and then you just think about like, oh yeah, I remember, you know, being in 5th grade and this song, you know, Tiffany, I Think We're Alone Now, the cover of that was huge here. Yeah. Kylie Minogue with The Locomotion, her like big US hit. And you think about all of those things, you know, from then, and you do think fondly. And then if it's a song you actually loved at the time, it you know, it just obviously some of those early concert experiences talking about that, just remember seeing this great song that I love live with, you know, thousands of other people and the band's right there. Usually the seats I had, they'd be way down there, but I'd still see them eventually, you know, if I looked at the big screen.
I'm in that game. I'm still, you know, I think I do well with an audience because I think I am the audience. I still feel like I know who they are. Does that make sense?
Totally, yeah.
I go and see loads of bands. Like I went to see ZZ Top, and I can remember the feeling that I know what I'm in the audience and I know what they're thinking. You know what I mean? And that's kind of part of it. And it's the same when I used to see the Beatles. Once I did a TV show with the Beatles. We did Top of the Pops in England. And that's where we all got to hang out, you know, because there was a canteen and nobody drank in those days. There was a place called the Canteen and everyone in the breaks would go and have a cup of tea and a cheese butty. You know, it wasn't rock and roll at all then. Yeah. It really wasn't. It was kind of a bit industrial. And you know, I remember, I don't know what period it was in my career, but the Beatles hit at the time. Everybody who was in the top 10 is on this show, or the top 20, whatever it's called in those days. But you have to move up a place. So the Beatles were always, when their records came out, they went straight to number 1. Ours didn't. So we were on Top of the Pops a lot. 2019, 16, 15, 11. So we were on Top of the Pops more than anybody. So we got to be there a lot. And the Beatles were doing Paperback Writer. And because I'm a fan of the Beatles, I'm not ashamed of being a fan of the Beatles. I think if you're not, you're a schmuck. I'm a fan of the Beatles. And I decide that although I'm a big pop star, I am a big pop star in reality in England at the time. Big pop star, very famous, can't go anywhere, you know, even though I still do. So I go and stand in the audience. You know, those people who want to be on the television and they're dancing like,
yeah, right, of course.
you know, making sure the camera sees them and everything. But I'm standing there and I'm in my little kind of Carnaby Street outfit, standing in the audience, dancing audience. There's only 30 people, 40 people,
Right.
making it look like thousands, but it's 40 people. And I'm standing there, and George Harrison sees me standing there, and he can see me, and he must be thinking, "What's he doing? What's he doing?" and he starts to sing Frere Jacques. Frere Jacques at me.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that great? So all my fandom puts me in great places. I was a fan of Elvis Presley. I got to meet him because I was a fan. You know, and he punked me. You know, he was making a movie in Hawaii. We were in Hawaii, and it was a day off on a 360-day world tour. Can you believe we had a day? So we took the day off in Hawaii. Yeah, we're stopping in Hawaii. And he's in the Hawaiian village. He's making a movie called, I guess it's called Paradise Hawaiian Style, one of those movies.
Yeah.
And so Tom Parker and, the Colonel and this guy, Tom Moffat, who's the DJ there, KPOI in Honolulu, they take us up there, and it's like, we've never been up at that early in our lives. So it's just me and the drummer, because we've stayed up all night because we don't want to miss the 4 a.m. wake up call. So we get in the car and we look like crap. He must have wondered, what kind of pop stars are these? So we get in he's in that hut over there, and it's a film set, but they're real. It's a real Hawaiian village, and we walk in the hut, and on the floor, face down, Elvis Presley with a bottle of Jack Daniels in the hand like that, and laid out, flat out, all dirty, and you know, it's like grass floor and dirty and everything. And because we don't know, we have no idea what to do. You know, we've seen drunk people before, but this is Elvis. What do? We say, hey, Elvis, wake up. You know, what do we do? And we're just standing there like two complete idiots. And in the door walks Elvis Presley. And it's his stunt double, dressed exactly the same. Isn't that brilliant?
That's fantastic.
A great punk. And then at some point of the day, all these people become, they're taking the piss out of us, because that's what English people do to each other. And Elvis has had this opportunity to meet the Beatles, who by being friendly in English, they're taking the piss, and all that kind of taking. It's called taking the piss. It's not a very good expression, but it explains to me. And he eventually gets one of the men that laughed at all of his jokes. I did an interview with him. I'd never done an interview in my life, and I'd called my sister. My sister had a phone. And I called my sister. I said, I've got to do an interview with Elvis Presley, and I've never done an interview. Got any good questions? You know how it is. Yeah. People don't know how to do that. And she says, ask him, does he dye his hair? So all through the interview, I'm standing there with a microphone, and I keep looking at his hair, and all my questions are crap. You know, when are you coming to England? You know, all the questions that everybody is So it's awful. And at one stage, one of the guys who works with him, Jerry Schilling, kneels down behind me, and Elvis pushes me. And I fall over on the floor in the grass hut. And they all laugh. They laughed at all his jokes and none of mine.
Well, of course. I mean, that's you don't have them on the payroll.
Right.
I can imagine, you know, young Peter Noone asking the king, when are you coming to England? And Colonel Tom is just like, next question, you know.
No, Elvis lied. He goes, well, you know, the Colonel's got to get back, and you know, we can't travel too much. You know, Elvis made up a story that was you know, they didn't want to say can't get him a green card.
Yeah, no. If Colonel Tom Parker leaves the country, he's never coming back, so he has to stay. And
it's a great story, isn't it? It's just a great story. That's why I was a bit disappointed in the movie, because they missed the true part of him, which was just a great kind of old-fashioned, you know, Tom Snow kind of person.
There's a couple things I want to make sure I ask you about. One of which is, you said earlier, and I made a note of it, that you would never want to be in a band with somebody you don't like. And this isn't the first time it's happened, but Neil Schon and Kane, I forget his first name, in Journey, they're suing each other again. They've sued each other before. They're out on a tour right now at this very moment with Def Leppard, playing every night. I can't imagine standing on stage with someone you're actively in litigation with, but I guess they're the two founding members of Journey. So if anybody's going to sue each other, Jonathan Cain is his name. It just, I'm almost 50, Peter. I'm starting to forget things, but
well, there's so many people in bands, and you're allowed to forget a few of the names, but you know, I can't imagine it. I couldn't do that, but you know, that's not their hobby anymore, is it?
Right. Yeah, that's the business with a capital B. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, with an S going through it, the B's got an S and a line down it. But you know, I think that must be incredibly difficult. I have been on stage with people I don't like.
Sure.
That I can't hit.
Right.
You know, sometimes if you really don't like somebody, you can get them from behind with a chair or something, you know what I mean, which has happened. But you know, I can't imagine. See, I enjoy my own music, you know, and I frequently accidentally say, "Oh, I love my songs," you know, on stage, and because I do, you know, I mean, I think Herman is Peter Noone is Herman. I think it's all jumbled up. It's a bit Stanislavski, but I truly believe that I know Mrs. Brown and the daughter.
Right. Of course. Yeah. No, I think it's great to be in sort of that position where, you know, you do love what you do. And you know what, sometimes it's fine to say, like, you know what, my music is great music and I'm proud of it. You know, sometimes you don't need to be sheepish about it. The thing I want to make sure I talk to you about, it's what Jackie Martling nudged me to reach out to you about, is he wanted me to ask you about P.F. Sloan, who I guess Jackie knows in some way. But P.F. Sloan, for people who don't know, it's a singer-songwriter and, you know, worked on songs for Jan and Dean, the Grassroots, the Turtles, Mamas and the Papas, but also Herman's Hermits. So he seems to feel, Jackie feels like P.F. Sloan is just such an interesting enough figure that you must have some anecdotes about spending time with him.
You know, he was what happened? We this is that part of that Metro Goldwyn Mayer gave Herman's Hermits a 3 major motion picture movie deal, and gave us money. Wow. Gave us money to do motion picture. Now, none of, you know, I had a bit of acting chops, but, you know, like, not good enough to ask Elvis when he was coming to England, but good enough. You know, I'd been in a TV series in England, and I knew how to learn the lines and then make them make sense and play the character. But none of the Hermits had ever. What Carl, the bass player, had a line, "You're the boss, you make up your mind," you know, in the movie. And "You're the boss, you are the boss." What? Don't say it like you mean it. "You are the boss, what are you coming to?" Right. So they had no acting chops, but we're now in a recording studio, Capitol Recording Studio in Hollywood, and they've written. MGM has got some songwriters writing songs for us, and they're all, you know, There's No Place Like Space is the name of the movie, where they're going to name a spaceship Herman's Hermits, and it's going to fly. This is a true story, and we've listened to the songs that they've got, and they're all written by two great songwriters, the same guys who wrote like Viva Las Vegas. They're like Elvis Presley writers. Sure. So they're not bad songs. They're just not really what we do, and we panic. And we call Mickey Most and say, "Mickey, they got us in the studio and they got a load of crappy songs. I mean, they're awful. Listen, there's no place like space." He said, I'm getting on the next plane. Stay there in the studio. I'm getting on the next plane. But he flies over, and we've got one song that's I got a feeling I'm falling, got a feeling that won't quit me, baby. And it's got a bit of a guitar line. We practice and we playing it over and over. 100 times we play this song trying to record it. And into the studio walks P.F. Sloan, and he's got a Donovan, we call it, it's really a Bob Dylan hat, you know, like a denim hat, and a beat up like acoustic guitar case. And like, who are you? You know, what is it? It's like some Donovan Dylan mixed up pot smoking fool. We're so hip, you know, we're English, we're rock and roll. And he said, well, Mickey Most asked me to come over here. And he says Mickey Most like it's Mickey Mouse who's sending him over here. Mickey Most, I'm over here. And I got to play you some of my songs. And he opens his guitar case and he plays like, where were you when I needed you? Oh, we'll have that. Show us the chords.
Well, I'm going to interrupt your story for a good reason because, he just ducked away. But I gave Jackie the opportunity to join us. But right now, I think we're just looking at his empty chair. But Jackie Martling will pop back in. And Jackie, I think he's getting his headphones like the consummate broadcaster that he is. And Jackie, I don't know if you see us, but you're on with Christian and Peter Noone right now.
I apologize. My girlfriend's in here working. I didn't realize almost the lights were on. I know you guys want to see my beautiful features.
We do.
Hello,
we do.
Hello, Peter. How are you? Many moons, my friend.
I know, long time, Stern and all those days. Yeah, it's great to see you, man.
Nice to see you.
You haven't changed a bit. You've changed a lot.
So, Peter...
Witty bastards. How do we ever get
I'm telling Christian my P.F. Sloan story.
Yeah, so he's literally just started the P.F. Sloan story.
Yeah,
so it's perfect timing, Jackie.
Because I couldn't tell, Peter, if people would respond. People have told me that they brought up his name to Jimmy Webb, and Jimmy Webb has disavowed knowing who, but he wrote a song about him. So I was really hesitant to have him ask you about him, so I'm thrilled. So I'm all ears.
Here's my story. He shows up at the studio. We're in Capitol Records in Hollywood, and we haven't got any songs, but we've got a major motion picture to make with no songs. And it has happened to us before, and we've sort of come up with Aruba Liberace kind of songs. And now we're failing badly. And he shows up, and he's denim. It looks like Donovan. Only he's done better drugs than Donovan, and we're kind of surprised to see him. And who are you? And he goes, my name's P.F. Sloan, and that doesn't mean anything. And he opens his guitar and he plays, where were you? Where were you when I needed you? And we say, we'll have that one, you know, that's who we were. We'll do that one. And he shows us the chords, and he plays it again. And Keith and Carl and Lek learn the chords. And we record each song, 11 songs. He plays us 11 songs, and we record them all in one night.
Wow.
I Must Avoid, Hold On, Where Were You When I Needed You, I Leave the House Every Morning, and all the things I do for you, baby. We don't even know he's written Eve of Destruction. We just think that this weird songwriter guy who's like, kind of like Elton John and Bernie showing up, you know what I mean, in one package.
Now, let me ask you, what did he look like physically? Was he little, big, old, young?
He was probably, well, we were young, so everybody looked older than we were. We were all teenagers, and he was probably 20.
Yeah, but was he a big fat guy, or? No,
he looked a bit the same body shape as me. But I will tell you that years later, we were playing in a field at some festival, you know, those festivals that used to be where they've got a bunch of old geezers coming out, you know, the Turtles and the Grassroots. And I'm in a dressing room with Lou Christie, and PF comes to the dressing room and says hello, and we're hanging out a little bit. And he says to Lou Christie, Lou, what big thighs you have. And I suddenly remember having the same thought when I met Elvis Presley. That he had, oh, look, he's got that hat on. That's a hat.
Yeah. So our visual audience on YouTube can see P.F. Sloan with the hat. And I'm struck by his hair looks just like Elvis's. And Peter, like Elvis, I wonder, did he dye that hair?
I don't know, but Elvis had big thighs. I remember noticing that when I met Elvis.
That's
and
just
I
so
just
funny.
thought that was an unusual thing to say. That must be something that men keep to themselves usually. Oh, nice.
Yeah. Even if you noticed it, you wouldn't bring it.
Unless the thighs are really big, like huge, you'd have to be like, look, I don't usually say this, but look at that guy's thighs.
It's not my thing.
Yeah.
Now, did you read his book? Did you read the P.F. Sloan book?
Yeah, I did.
Because the whole book is just like that story you just told. But when you have a book full of stories like that, I start saying, wait a minute. If any of these aren't true, maybe none of them are true. But my friend John said, no, I think they're all true.
I think they're all true because, you know, Steve Barry, who wrote And Must to Avoid with him, is still around. And I think he's still worried that some of that ether or whatever was around got in his head as well, you know, because he was definitely a strange, unusual type of person. But who else would write a song? I mean, listen, She's a Must to Avoid is an unusual idea, but The Eve of Destruction.
Yeah, no, he was.
That takes some wild thinking, you know. You all believe we're on the eve of destruction.
I was right at that age where that struck us over the head like with a hatchet. And that guy, he was like Zelig or like Forrest Gump. He was standing next to everybody all the time. And it's such a cat. And I thought I had heard his name somewhere along the line in the early years.
Well, he was just a unique individual. And how about the miracle of he shows up at the studio because Mickey Mosters knows he's a songwriter and he's sending songwriters, and the guy comes in and every song he plays, every song, he opened this bag, he got a pick and a nasty old guitar. You know, we don't say, oh, what year is it or any of that. You know,
right.
Can you tune that thing up? And every song he played us 11 songs and we recorded them all. And there was a bit of smoky haze in the studio. And our bass player, Carl Green, at 5 a.m. in the morning, we didn't mix in those days, remember? We recorded everything onto the tape.
Right.
Recorded. We're doing an overdub, like maybe the background vocals for She's a Must to Avoid. And our bass player is asleep in the bass cabinet.
That was in the book. You know, the stories are unbelievable.
Yeah. It's in
They're
the book.
unbelievable.
Oh, no. I know. The book is a great sort of it's all self-deprecation because he was a character. Everybody who met him goes, what happened to you when you were with him? Oh, this was it. Oh, this is even weird. But you see, because I've been in the business a long time, I've met many people like P.F. Sloan. A lot of AA meetings, people like Bill Slow up.
Well, it doesn't help promote anything for either of you, but I'm jotting down that I want to get the book, What's Exactly the Matter with Me, which is the P.F. Sloan book. I'm fascinated. I love these stories already. And while I've got a moment, one of the sweetest people on earth, Lynn Bollinger, who says hi to both Herman and to me. Jackie, you weren't here yet. Otherwise, Lynn B would have, of course, said hello to you.
All right. I accept that.
Yeah. But she should go to jokeland.com and that'll make up for it. And
that book is not available on Kindle. It's not available on Audible or anything. That's the first time I've read an actual book in so long. I said, all right, I'll give it a try. And Jesus, the old you can't put it down. He's long dead, and I'm sure it's so funny, Peter, because all you're getting out of it is what an odd guy this is, and all the stories are so odd. And at the end of it, you realize what a body of work the guy had.
Yeah, if you put it all together, that's fantastic.
Right, but it's dwarfed by the insane. I can't believe. I don't know. I shouldn't say this because he's still alive, but I've read so many books about the old days, and I know so many of you guys. I can't believe nobody has killed Lou Adler. I can't believe it. How is he still walking?
I tried to kill him because he showed up at my house and he was married to Shelley Fabaret. And I thought, how do I get to Shelley Fabaret? I have to kill Lou Adler.
Some
But he
people
wrote
just know.
silhouettes.
Some people just know where the bodies are buried, as they say. Jackie, when I talked to you last week, you talked a little bit about, and I think it would be fun to have you both reminisce on it, that Peter used to come into the Stern show and you would give him new lyrics to like Mrs. Brown. And he always was a good sport about no matter what the nonsense was you handed him, he would always do it. Right, Jackie?
Peter, I've been bragging about you for, what is it? It's like got to be 30 years. How when we heard you were coming in, me and Fred would write an awful parody. It was Barbara Bush looks older than she ought to, and Gary's teeth are greener than, whatever the horrible thing of the day was. And you wouldn't even pre-read it. You would just sing that song.
That's how you disown it. I've not read this. I'm going to do it live.
right.
And you had, don't you dare have lunch with Jeffrey Dahmer.
That's right.
Don't you dare have lunch with Jeffrey Dahmer. And then you had the P word. You may end up in a pie. Great stuff. And I laughed as I was singing it, but I still disowned it. And then I think you crossed the line with Mrs. Bush looks older than she ought to.
Rochi in the chat asks, is this a repeat, Christian? No, I've never had Jackie and Peter Noone on at the same time. And honestly, I wasn't sure that it was going to work out. I'm so glad that Jackie popped in. So, this is all happening right now for everybody watching on YouTube.
I'm having such a good day. They came to look at my house because they're going to film an episode of a brand new show here, which is nice money for a guy that's not making any. And also some guys came. These guys are going to remember every note I ever wrote for Howard Stern, Peter. Every note I ever wrote. Yeah, I'm sure you saw me pass some notes. I have every note he ever said. And these guys are going to sell them. And they think we're going to make a fortune. And I don't have to do anything except say yes. And avoid the cease and desist letter. Yeah, I know that the songs we wrote for you are in there somewhere in the mix.
Great.
If I knew the days. And then, it's great fun. So I didn't know I'd be done. I wasn't playing hard to get. I thought I'd be still working with these guys, and they're gone. Ready to go.
They gave you all the money they had, and there was no reason to keep talking to them, right, Jackie?
That might be true. Now, you guys are literally neighbors, because Christian, you said that. Are you really?
Well, no, what I had said is that Dennis Miller lives. I don't know how close he lives, but they're both up in Montecito, and. We used to have Peter on, I don't know, about once a month, depending on the tour schedule. He'd come over to Dennis's house and we do, in those days, an hour of radio seemed like a long time. But now you've got Joe Rogan doing 4-hour podcasts. But I think that it was always delightful. And I would get so many emails from Peter's fans. I still have folders of them in my old email because they adore Peter so much. And he's such a great storyteller. And Tim Salmon's a friend from those old days, the old radio show. So, Peter, it's far too successful to live in Burbank like I do. But he's a neighbor in the state of California.
Well, because when you said that, I said, either Peter's doing a lot shittier or Christian's doing a lot better than I thought.
Well,
exactly. You got it right. Hey,
my wife wrote for a number of Emmy-nominated shows, Mad Men and Orange is the New Black. So my family is very successful. Me, not as much, but my wife is a tremendous success. She makes the money so that I can do stuff like this right now.
That's it. And Christian, me and Jackie both lived in the best 50 years that anyone could have ever been asked to have lived in.
The bubble, the absolute bubble, the baby boomer bubble. We didn't even know how lucky we were. We had no idea how lucky we were.
I remember thinking that my grandparents got the beginning of it, in the 60s, where they got a refrigerator and they got, a car and all those things, they got rid of the tandem cycle and got them, every year people did a little bit better. And then it's somehow we reached the top of the mountain and it's sort of slipping away now.
Right, leveled off. To this day, not even being funny or ironic, I call the refrigerator the ice box, because my father, his whole life, referred to it as the ice box, because when he was a kid, it was a box with ice in it. So not even being funny, you know, this, to me, the word, believe it or not, the word refrigerator is a new word, which sounds absurd.
You
but,
probably
you know,
don't call it a vacuum cleaner either, do you?
No, I call it get down on your hands and knees and scrape, you know.
There you go.
No, I don't know what you would call, what would you call
What would you call it, a Hoover,
Exactly.
Peter? Because it's a brand name. It's like a Kleenex. You know, I think about that sometimes, how if you just look at one device, if you look at a telephone, you know, not even talking the old rotary phone, talking about the earpiece and the mouth is like, operator, give me Algonquin 6547, you know, like you see in the old movies. And, you know, it's a Hitchcock movie where the whole plot is a party line. I'm like, I can't even imagine that your whole neighborhood had one line and you all shared it, but it's great for a movie. And now everything in human history is at my disposal in these two fingers that I'm holding up to the camera,
which is so frightening. Which is just so frightening. You know, when I was a kid, it was still at the point where you picked up the phone and said operator, and you told her the number. Right. You know, the dial on the phone was a new gadget, and then those buttons. I mean, my God.
Are you that old?
I'm 76. How old are you?
I'm 76 too.
Well, look at that. Are you going to tell me you had dial-up phones in England before we did?
You know, my parents lived in a little village, and you picked up the phone and waited for a woman who was pissed off because you'd woken her up.
Okay, so it's basically the same thing.
And you'd say, could you call America? What are you calling America at this time of the night? It's a different time over there.
Yeah, I don't want to be rude to my friends in America. I don't mind waking you up, you old bag. But
oh Jesus! Oh, that's funny. That's great. That's great.
But you know, we've all been. You know, I grew up with. I've had a great life. I grew up with my grandparents because my parents were both at university. And, you know, after the war and all that stuff, people got to go and finish their education. So my mother went to Cambridge, my father went to Edinburgh, and I went to North Wales with my grandmother. And she had no running water, no electricity. So we had to read books by candlelight and light, you know, and there was a bathtub that she put a bath onto a stove with water in it and boiled it, and you couldn't get in it until you didn't burn your skin on the bottom of the thing. You couldn't get in it when it was on. I grew up in a completely different world than normal people.
Peter, if my 9-year-old son Felix was listening right now, he would listen to all that. It would register on some level, and he'd say, "Yeah, but where would you charge your iPad?"
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
There you go. You know, we didn't think, but you know, all of us became readers because there was absolutely nothing else to do. Nothing else to do.
Yeah, that's the old Abraham Lincoln, you know. And then there was always my science teacher used to be funny. He used to say, "Yeah, we were so poor we had to watch television by candlelight." You know, he thought he was so funny, you know. Yeah. But wow, the old days, man. I just love them. I just love them.
No, I think it's better now. I like having a phone. I can go for a walk and speak to people instead of sitting in an office and chatting for hours and hours and hours like now. And then you know, I can go for a walk afterwards, and I can call my wife, and I can call the people that I like, and you know, and hope my agent calls me and interrupts the calls. And you know, life it's okay. You know, just so long as you remember to be grateful. I guess to be grateful. I mean, I said to Christian earlier, my job was always my hobby. So, you know, if I wasn't out singing tonight, I'd be at home playing records and singing along to their song that's got its hat on. Hip, 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 hip,
yeah, George Burns said he retired at 15 and then just started doing show business. You know, it's just a lark. You know, I'll tell you, there are a few things, though. Thank God I wasn't successful until the late 80s, because I know I would have died of cocaine if I had any money, but I had no money. And Peter, thank God, when we were kids, there was no such thing as Tinder. I mean, you were a rock star, but still, Tinder, you know, I got to work with these guys, and this guy comes in, oh, yeah, I got laid 4 times on the way from the airport. I'm like, I'm going home. I'm going to go home and read a book by candlelight.
Yeah, right. There you go. That's better, safer. It's overrated what happens to rock stars because 99% of them are lying. They say they got in the music business so they could meet girls. You CBGBs, that's the CBGBs. Like, that's not true. Nobody ever got in this. Nobody ever made it who got in it for any other reason than love of music. You have to like music to play it with any kind of style.
Right. And the girls you meet are nothing to write home about.
Yeah, but at a certain point it is about quantity over quality, but then you get a little bit more of a refined taste. At a certain point, you don't want to drink box wine. You don't want $2 wine from Trader Joe's. At a certain point, you're like, oh, that's all right. I'll try and find more. So Peter referenced CBGBs because for our visual audience, we were talking at the beginning. I have a background photo. I'm not actually sitting in CBGBs, especially since it's a Chase Bank now, I believe. And Jackie, as somebody who was always a New Yorker, I can only imagine what that place was like in the heyday.
No, that you got me wrong. I'm a country boy. I lived in a little hamlet just south of Oyster Bay on Long Island. So I grew up in a little tiny hamlet. That's the little hamlets in my area served the people in the turn of the century mansions. And then they started intermarrying, and that's what the little hamlet of East Norwich was. My grandfather, not my great, my grandfather, my father's father, was a blacksmith, and the blacksmith barn was in the corner of our home, and not the corner of our property. It's not like an antique. I mean, his father got kicked by a horse. I never met the guy. He was out of his mind until the boys went away to World War II, and we don't even have a picture of them. People, oh, you were in the city. How was it? Was it wild? Was it crazy?
Yeah. And
I wish,
Yeah, I think I'm doing okay, and I preferred you when you were writing down these stories.
You son of a bitch.
Well,
that's called taking the piss in England, and people don't appreciate that. But
we call it breaking balls here. It's the same thing, it's just one sounds more violent than the other.
What do you say over here?
Breaking balls, right, Jackie? That's what we would call it. Yeah.
Busting
horns.
Yeah.
Well,
it's just a thing, because Jackie, I love you. I even read your emails. And they're long.
So because Peter, I don't want to keep you guys too much longer, but I don't want to get in the way of the plugs, the promotion. PeterNoone.com. You can find everything you need to know what's going on in the world of Herman's Hermits. Peter, we're talking right now. You're playing tonight in Wisconsin somewhere, I believe, right?
I'm at the Wisconsin State Fair.
Yeah. Okay. So you're at the Wisconsin State Fair,
and then I'm off to Oshkosh, and then some Ocean City, New Jersey, and all over the place. We're living the dream.
Now, are you part of a tour, or is the Herman's Hermits on
I only
tour?
I'm on my own now. I don't like touring with people. When I started to tour, you played with the Beatles and Del Shannon and Roy Orbison and people like that. There's nobody. I'd like to tour with people where 1 and 1 makes 3.
Right.
1 and 1 equals 1. So, I'm out on my own. I enjoy my own.
Well,
go
ahead. Sorry.
In the worst possible meaning of this, however you take it, it's a really good feeling when everybody's sitting in the audience, however many they are, paid to see you.
Right.
I know how to deal with them.
As opposed to being with 6 different bands and you're trying to figure out who's who, and
Yeah.
I'm sick of people shouting out free bird.
But it's one of your best songs, Peter. Come on. Obviously, the people want to hear it.
I know.
And yeah, look, on a much smaller scale than either of you, I've been doing a podcast now for 11 and a half years. And there was a point where I was like, wait, 100 people heard that? I can't imagine 100 people wanting to hear that. Even after being on the radio with Dennis Miller and millions of people, it was like, yeah, but they're not here for Dennis. They're here for me. And I like to think that 100 is all still with me, guys.
Right.
Well, I think I can hear the clicks going off though. But
but they're clicking right over to jokeland.com because that's where they can find everything Jackie Martling. Jackie, today's Tuesday. Thursday, you're going to be at Hemingway's Seaside in the beautiful Seaside Heights, New Jersey. Spent many a summer there. And also in a couple weeks at Ocean Beach on Fire Island and Sugarloaf Pack, September 13th. That's down the street from where I grew up, near Sugarloaf, a town called Greenwood Lake.
You want to hear show business? The guy I do a lot of shows with, I do my Stand Up Memories podcast with, Peter Bales, has had a comedy class for 30 years where you take his class for 8 weeks and then you do 5 minutes. They've been doing 30 years. A guy that graduated from his university, he calls it, 20 years ago, him and his friends bought a hotel on Fire Island, and they booked us to work on Fire Island at his hotel so he could open the show with his jokes. Can you imagine? He's so rich that he bought a hotel so he could be on the show.
I used to get some stage time at a room at the back of Hamburger Harry's in Manhattan. A woman named Gladys had Gladys's Comedy Club so that Gladys could tell jokes on stage. And I believe she's still at it in some form. And I hope her act hasn't changed because let's just say I always enjoyed it.
Well, Jesus Christ.
And of course, Jackie's on Cameo. If you want to get a birthday greeting, Peter, when your birthday's coming up, Jackie will give me 50% off on a Cameo that I can send you. I'm trying to make this deal now on the air so that I can hold him to it. Have you ever thought about doing Cameo, Peter?
I've got a Cameo whatever it is, .com/Peter Noone.
Okay.
I do loads of them. I have fun with them. I said, I'm going to keep it cheap so I can have fun. People can't complain. If they complain, I can give them the money back. You know what I mean? Because I just have fun. I sing stupid things and write songs, and it's you know, Jackie. It's a great.
Well, with me,
you can have a
right? Somebody writes, "My father is Jewish and he loves poop jokes and he hates his wife and etc." And I can just go down the road and tell a joke about every different thing they name.
I'm sure you can.
I totally enjoy doing them. You know,
Me too.
It's a lark.
You know, and they pay you money for having fun. That's the best part of all.
It's unbelievable. You know, I say to my girlfriend, "Hey, we just made $250." You know,
wow.
Well, of course, for me that's 700 cameos, but
well,
no, it's no.
I feel like if I signed up for Cameo, it would sort of be the reverse. I would have to offer $20 for anybody.
No, don't beat yourself up.
Hey, Christian, if you set up a Cameo, I'll do one tomorrow.
All right, that'll be it. That's perfect. I'll make sure I do. Well, gentlemen, I know, Peter, you've been on for more than an hour. I know you've got to be on stage. I really appreciate it. Let's figure out a way to do this again sometime. We'll do a more proper interview. We'll structure it. Jackie, next time you're in California, maybe we'll see if the stars align. We can get together with Peter. And if you've enjoyed this visit from Jackie, you can check out the conversation I had with Jackie last week on the Who Are These Podcasts YouTube channel. Who Are These Broadcasters? Our first ever bonus episode. Jackie and I talked for 90 minutes, and it's been delightful to talk to both of you. We'll start like a text thread where we're all trading messages. I'm getting that P.F. Sloan book, and I will report back to you. Great to have a couple of great raconteurs, a word that showed up in the chat. Our friend Raging Rhino, love me some Herman's Hermits, and I love hearing Peter's stories. Best raconteur since Orson Bean, who was a regular on Dennis's show.
Wow.
He was a regular on Dennis's show. His grandson was a man named Andrew Breitbart, who passed away tragically about 11, 12 years ago. His website lives on, but Orson, just a delight. He had a story about everything. And he's one of those guys that you always love, and we appreciate Rochi being in the chat. Well, thank you guys so much. Thanks to everybody in the chat. It was fun getting everybody's feedback.
Peter, so nice to see you. I can't tell.
Good to see you, Jackie. You haven't changed a bit, man.
As I mentioned, Thursday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 10:30 a.m. Pacific, we'll be doing our next episode. We'll have a round table about Aerosmith, calling it a day, and retiring from the touring world for the one reason that you have to, when you can't sing anymore. But we'll talk about that on Thursday.
Well, somebody should tell that to Frankie Valli.
Oh, he's great.
I love him.
He's taking the piss out right now, Peter. It's okay.
Peter, I got to tell you the story. So Frankie Valli is doing a show, and Jersey Boys is at its height. and I've only been off the Stern Show for a year, so I'm still very, very well known in the area. So me and this girl go to see Frankie Valli at the Englewood Cliffs Little Theater. It's a beautiful theater. You probably worked there. And we go to see him, and, you know, every song just freaks you out because it's a song I made out to, and it's a song I felt somebody up to. You know, it's your whole childhood. But I'm still a little bit of a celebrity. So after the show, we go backstage, and so many people are coming up. Jackie, how you doing? Jackie, how you doing? And after a few minutes, Frankie Valli grabbed me by the arm, and he pulled me over in the corner. And he said, "Who the fuck are you?" I said, "I'm on the radio, Frank. It's a long story." Who the fuck are you?
That's a perfect note to end on, not just because of the punchline, but earlier Peter and I were talking about the songs, the soundtracks of our lives, and leave it to Jackie to sort of go with the R-rated version of that. Yeah, there's all these girls I felt up. Oh, I fingered a girl to this song and all that. So thank you, Jackie, for helping us hit the post.
Fingered. I did not say fingered.
You know,
I was
Jackie,
gonna, and I did purposely didn't.
Jackie, you still got one of those staples in your nose from that Penthouse magazine.
Of course. I did it for 20 years, of course. You know, I need some proof, you know.
Well, I look forward to doing it again soon. Thank you both, gentlemen. Thank you, everybody in the chat. We'll see you next time on the Black.